Buenos días, yo soy la señorita Erika y yo espero que ustedes estén bien. Estamos aquí para la siguiente lección de español de Brookline Interactive Group de español para niños. Entonces, bienvenidos a la sesión. Hoy vamos a concentrarnos en aprender cómo decir la hora en español. We're going to be learning how to tell time en español, in Spanish. Por eso necesitamos primero de recordarnos de los números que necesitamos para poder hablar de la hora y después vamos a aprender cómo decir la hora en una frase y claro que vamos a practicar. Entonces, primero tenemos que revisar los números que vamos a necesitar para poder decir la hora. So, we're going to be learning how to tell time today, as I said. So we're going to be practicing first together about some of the numbers in Spanish, which we will need to know in order to tell time. So we have learned some numbers together already, but we need a quick review of those numbers and also just to add on a little more so we have all the numbers that we need in order to tell time in Spanish. Entonces, los números, the numbers that we need to know in Spanish, we need to know from 1 to 12 in order to tell the time on the clock. So, vamos a repetir los números, and so some of these should sound pretty familiar for those of you who either have been with us in our class together before, or if you learned the Spanish numbers somewhere else, then you already have a head start. So, vamos a practicar primero con repetir los números juntos en español. So, please repeat after me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's from 1 to 10, which we have learned together. And now we need 2 more in order to tell the time. We need to know with 11 is 11. 11. And we need to know one more number, which is 12. 12. 12. So todo junto, all together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Muy bien. Make sure that we can hear the difference when you say that between 2 and 12, dos and 12. So make sure when you're saying those two numbers, you say it extra clear so we don't have any confusion about if it's dos or 12. Muy bien. So those are the numbers that we'll need to know in Spanish. So now we have that. I want to read us a little story before we get into learning how to tell time in Spanish. A short story will help us get warmed up for telling the time in Spanish. So we have 2 people in our story, Pedrito and Laura. Pedrito and Laura. Those are the 2 kids in the picture. So, Pedrito, ¿sabes qué hora es? Pregunta Laura. Son las 2:30 de la tarde, responde Pedrito. Entonces, ¿es la hora del almuerzo? Dice Laura. No, falta media hora. La hora del almuerzo es a las 3, dice Pedrito. So Laura says, Pedrito, ¿sabes qué hora es? Do you know what time it is? He says, son las 2:30 de la tarde. It's 2:30 in the afternoon, responde Pedrito. Entonces es la hora de almuerzo, so it's lunchtime, says Laura. He says, no, falta media hora. La hora de almuerzo es a las 3. No, there's a half an hour left. Lunchtime is at 3, says Pedrito. So we're going to be learning just how Pedrito and Laura talked about the time. We're going to learn how to tell time together in Spanish. So now, as we already have our numbers, that's the first step that we'll need to learn to telling time in Spanish. So in next part we need in order to tell time in Spanish is to learn how to say, like, what time is it? Or it's this time. So to say in Spanish, what time is it? We say, ¿qué hora es? ¿Qué hora es? Say with me. ¿Qué hora es? ¿Qué hora es? Means what time is it? So this is how we can ask the question, ¿qué hora es? What time is it? So now I'm going to help you to learn how to put together and to say what time it is. So we have our question, ¿qué hora es? What time is it? ¿Qué hora es? So now let's practice together to say the different times in Spanish. To say it's 1 o'clock, it's 2 o'clock, it's 3 o'clock. So for those of you who haven't learned how to tell time yet, that's okay. Don't worry too much. You can just help practice your numbers with us. But for those of you who do know how to tell time or are learning how to tell time, then you can jump in and try to figure out how to tell the time. And so hopefully some of this sounds familiar to what you've been learning in English. So first to say it's 1 o'clock, es la una. Es la una. So say it with me. It's 1 o'clock. Es la una. Es la una. So 1 o'clock is kind of special and different because we say es la una for 1 o'clock. But for all the other hours, we're going to say son las and then the number. So for example, if it's 2 o'clock, son las dos. Son las dos. So make sure to say these with me. Son las dos. It's 2 o'clock. Son las dos. Now, if it's 3 o'clock, son las tres. Son las tres. It's 4 o'clock. Son las cuatro. Son las cuatro. It's 4 o'clock. Now for 5 o'clock, it's 5 o'clock. Son las cinco. Son las cinco. It's 6 o'clock. Son las seis. Son las seis. It's 7 o'clock. Son las siete. Son las siete. It's 8 o'clock. Son las ocho. Son las ocho. It's 9 o'clock. Son las nueve. Son las nueve. It's 10 o'clock. Son las 10. Son las 10. It's 11 o'clock. Son las 11, our new number. Son las 11. And last one, it's 12 o'clock. Son las 12. Son las 12. So again, to say it is, like it's 1 o'clock, it's 2 o'clock. If it's 1 o'clock, we say es la una. Es la una. But for all the other hours, we're going to say son las and then the number. So vamos a repetir. Let's repeat these one more time. Es la una. Es la una. It's 1 o'clock. Son las dos. Son las dos. It's 2 o'clock. Son las tres. Son las tres. It's 3 o'clock. Son las cuatro. Son las cuatro. It's 4 o'clock. Son las cinco. Son las cinco. It's 5 o'clock. Son las seis. Son las seis. It's 6 o'clock. Son las siete. Son las siete. It's 7 o'clock. Son las ocho. Son las ocho. It's 8 o'clock. Son las nueve. Son las nueve. It's 9 o'clock. Son las 10. Son las 10. It's 10 o'clock. Son las 11. Son las 11. It's 11 o'clock. And the last one, son las 12. Son las 12. It's 12 o'clock. Okay, so let's see. Let's see if you can remember. ¿Cómo se dice en español? How do you say in Spanish? ¿Cómo se dice en español? It's 1 o'clock. Es la una. ¿Cómo se dice en español it's 8 o'clock? Son las 8. ¿Cómo se dice en español it's 5 o'clock? Son las 5. ¿Cómo se dice en español it's 7 o'clock? Son las 7. ¿Cómo se dice en español it's 12 o'clock? Son las 12. ¿Cómo se dice en español it's 2 o'clock? Son las 2. ¿Cómo se dice en español it's 9 o'clock? Son las 9. ¿Cómo se dice en español it's 3 o'clock? Son las 3. ¿Cómo se dice en español it's 11 o'clock? Son las 11. And last one, ¿cómo se dice en español it's 4 o'clock? Son las 4. Son las 4. Muy bien. Hopefully you're getting the hang of this. It's not actually too hard to tell the time in Spanish. There's, apart from the 1 o'clock with es la, otherwise it's just son las and the number. And we know the numbers in Spanish already, so we just have to remember to say son las. Now, and we also have to cannot forget our question of how to ask what time is it. ¿Qué hora es? ¿Qué hora es? ¿Qué hora es? What time is it? So now I'm going to ask you about what time is it now that you are watching this video with me. ¿Qué hora es? For me, son las 2. It's 2 o'clock. Son las 2. And for you, ¿qué hora es? What time is it? Muy bien. Okay, so now we're going to practice this a little more together. I have some clocks that we're going to take a look at and see if we can try to tell the time in Spanish on the clock. So again, remembering that we say ¿qué hora es? For what time is it? We have on the screen here. And then when we want to say it is, we say es la una for 1 o'clock. But for all the other times, we're going to say son las and then the number. Son las 2, son las 3, son las 4, son las 5, son las 6, son las 7, son las 8, son las 9, son las 10, son las 11, and son las 12. Remember to keep those last two numbers in mind, since we've practiced a lot together with the numbers up to 10, but today is new with 11 and 12. So don't forget those two numbers when you go to tell the time in Spanish of 11 and 12. So let's give a try and see if we can tell some times in Spanish. ¿Qué hora es? Hopefully the clock is big enough you can see. So, ¿qué hora es? ¿Qué hora es? So if we look at the first clock on the top on the left, ¿qué hora es? What time is it on the clock? On this clock, ¿qué hora es? Now, so again, for those of you who are just learning to tell time, just try your best. And those of you who don't know how to tell time, just listen and repeat after me. So this one, ¿qué hora es? What time is this? This one, it is 6 o'clock. So you can see the arrow is pointing on the 6. So to say it's 6 o'clock, we say son las 6. Son las 6. It's 6 o'clock. Son las 6. Okay, now we're going to skip this one for now and go to this one. ¿Qué hora es? What time is it? ¿Qué hora es? What do we see on this clock? ¿Qué hora es? So you can see the little hand is pointing to the 11, the 11. So how do we say it's 11 o'clock? Son las 11. Son las 11. Let's try another one. ¿Qué hora es? What time is it? ¿Qué hora es? So we look here, we look at the little hand. It's on the one, the una. So remember how to say it's 1 o'clock. Remember, this one is different than all the other times. To say it's 1 o'clock, es la una. Es la una. So remember, this is the only one we don't say son las. We say es la. So es la una. It's 1 o'clock. Es la una. Okay, muy bien. Let's try this one. ¿Qué hora es? ¿Qué hora es? But you can see it, the little hand is on the siete. So how do we say it's 7 o'clock? ¿Cómo se dice it's 7 o'clock? Son las 7. Son las 7. Muy bien. Son las 7. All right, we have a couple more to try. Not that one. Let's go to this one here. ¿Qué hora es? ¿Qué hora es? What time is this one? ¿Qué hora es? If we look at the shorthand, we can see it's pointed to dos. So how do we say it's 2 o'clock? Son las 2. Son las 2. Muy bien. Okay. Y aquí, ¿qué hora es? ¿Qué hora es? This one is a trick because it's the same as one we already did before. ¿Qué hora es? You can see that little hand is pointing to the one. So es la una. Es la una. It's 1 o'clock. Es la una. Okay. Y aquí, ¿qué hora es? ¿Qué hora es? What time is this one? We can see the little hand and the big hand are on the same thing, which is the 12. So we have to say it's 12 o'clock. Son las 12. Son las 12. Okay. Y eso. ¿Qué hora es? ¿Qué hora es? This one, it's another trick because it's the same as last one. So, son las 12. Son las 12. Excelente. So again, we're just going to say es la una for 1 o'clock, but all the other numbers we have son las in front of our number. Son las. Muy bien. So now I want to ask you about different times that you do different things. So I'm going to ask you ¿qué hora es when you do this thing? So for example, el desayuno, breakfast. ¿Qué hora es? What time is it when you eat breakfast? ¿Qué hora es? Maybe everyone has a different answer. So, but when is your answer? ¿Qué hora es when you eat breakfast? For example, for me, I can say son las 8. It's 8 o'clock. Son las 8. Excelente. Now, how about ¿qué hora es cuando vas a la escuela? What time is it when you go to school? If you go to school, what time is it? Por ejemplo, son las 9, maybe at 9 o'clock. But again, everyone's school is different, so everyone will have a different answer. ¿Qué hora es? Now, ¿a qué hora es cuando terminas la escuela? What time is it when you finish school? Por ejemplo, son las 4. If you finish school at 4 o'clock, say son las 4. Okay. ¿A qué hora o qué hora es cuando tienes tu almuerzo? What time is it when you eat lunch? ¿Qué hora es? Por ejemplo, son las 12. For example, son las 12 at 12 o'clock. ¿Y qué hora es cuando te acuestas? What time is it when you go to bed? ¿Qué hora es? Son las 9, maybe, if it's 9 o'clock when you go to bed. Again, everyone is going to have a different bedtime, so you can answer different ways. But for example, son las 9. Muy bien. ¿Y a qué hora te despiertas? When do you wake up? ¿Qué hora es? Maybe son las 6 or son las 7 if you get up at 6 o'clock or at 7 o'clock. Son las 6 o son las 7. Muy bien. Okay. ¿Y qué hora es cuando cenas? What time is it when you eat dinner? ¿Qué hora es? Por ejemplo, son las 6, maybe at 6 o'clock. Son las 6. Okay, excelente. Let's try to tell time in a few more clocks. So, ¿qué hora es? Vamos aquí. ¿Qué hora es? Let's try this one. ¿Qué hora es? What time is it? You can see that little hand is on the 4. So it's 4 o'clock. Son las 4. Son las 4. Muy bien. Okay, y aquí. ¿Qué hora es? ¿Qué hora es? Son las 9. It's 9 o'clock. Son las 9. Okay, let's go down to the next row. ¿Qué hora es? It's another trick. It's the same as before. Son las 9. It's 9 o'clock. ¿Y qué hora es? What time is it here? Son las 8. Son las 8. It's 8 o'clock. ¿Qué hora es? You can see that the little hand is on the 5. So, son las 5. It's 5 o'clock. Son las 5. Y aquí, let's see. We'll do a few more. Okay, aquí. ¿Qué hora es? Son las 8. ¿Y qué hora es? Son las 4. Son las 4. Excelente. So lots of different ways to practice, especially because you have maybe you have a clock in your home, you have a clock in your classroom. There are many different ways to practice telling time in Spanish. Okay, so una vez más, for one last time, the way we're going to tell the time in Spanish, ¿qué hora es? So we have to ask the question, ¿qué hora es? What time is it? So if we want to say it's 1 o'clock, es la una. It's 1 o'clock. Es la una. ¿Cómo se dice it's 2 o'clock? How do we say it's 2 o'clock? Son las 2. ¿Cómo se dice it's 3 o'clock? Son las 3. How do we say, ¿cómo se dice it's 4 o'clock en español? Son las 4. ¿Cómo se dice it's 5 o'clock in Spanish? Son las 5. ¿Y cómo se dice it's 6 o'clock in Spanish? Son las 6. ¿Cómo se dice it's 7 o'clock en español? Son las 7. ¿Cómo se dice it's 8 o'clock en español? Son las 8. ¿Cómo se dice it's 9 o'clock en español? Son las 9. ¿Y cómo se dice it's 10 o'clock en español? Son las 10. ¿Cómo se dice it's 11 o'clock? Son las 11. ¿Y cómo se dice it's 12 o'clock? Son las 12. Son las 12. Muy bien. Okay, so now that we are getting pretty good at telling the time, let's go back and read the story one more time that we had at the start and see if now we can understand more of the story that we heard now that we know a little bit more about how to tell time. So, Laura says, Pedrito, ¿sabes qué hora es? Pregunta Laura. Son las 2:30 de la tarde, responde Pedrito. Entonces, es la hora del almuerzo, dice Laura. No, falta media hora. La hora del almuerzo es a las 3, dice Pedrito. So now let's see, what words did you hear that you understood? We have Pedrito, ¿sabes qué hora es? What's qué hora es? What time is it? So she's saying, Pedrito, do you know what time it is? ¿Sabes ¿Qué hora es? And he says, son las dos. So what does that mean if he says, son las dos? What time is it? ¿Qué hora es? Son las dos. It's 2 o'clock. And so she says, okay, so that means it's lunchtime. And he says, no, there's still a half hour left. La hora del almuerzo es a las 3. A las 3. So no, there's still a half an hour left. Lunchtime is at 3 o'clock. Now we know how to say the time. We understand a las 3. A las 3. Okay, and so we also heard son las dos in this reading. And we also heard our new question, ¿qué hora es? What time is it? Okay, super trabajo. I know it's kind of tough work to learn how to tell time, and now you're learning how to do it in Spanish, so it's a great accomplishment. And as I was saying before, you can always practice this more and more. You don't have to wait until a Spanish class to practice telling time, because there's always going to be a time for you to tell at home. So you just look at the clock, or if you know what time you have a class, or if you have another activity, you can practice to say what time that is in Spanish. So son las or es la una. So there's many different ways we can practice to tell the time in Spanish. That's all for today. Gracias y adiós.